don't have to add a new one, or if you do have to add a new one, perhaps there's a decrease in the mileage of the other 17 routes besides the new one that can offset some of your new cost. That's the kind of stuff we built into the new bids that went out, and we got some returns now. But that's the part that we're going to have to hang our hat on, is who makes the determination of how many miles you really need. Because, you know, the bus company said, well, I want to go this way. And we go, well, but the program's saying if you go this way, you shave 3, 4, 10 miles a day. It just is one of those things that if you can save some money, and you can prove that you can save some money, then this will be basically paid for.
Mike,
more.
mentor.
Yeah, I'll just go through the list of software services and make comments as I feel, and then open it up. The first is the HR. I see it says approved. I don't recall approving software services for new HR. Certainly, HR is a management function of the superintendent. However, I assume means substitution. I know that in the past year, we have had some interaction with the way the substitutes were filled in, if you will, and I thought it was working well. It seems to be a major expense that I would question at this time, because let's keep in mind, we're still at a time of fiscal constraint that we want to make sure that these long-term investments in software are going to reap us. So that's my question on HR.
Can I just
I want to go through each,
right.
and then I'll open it up to the other members of the school committee. The MMS training, we've had an introduction to where we're at with our new bullying policy. It is a new bullying policy. The superintendent has indicated the state may come out with some new directives. I would be very concerned that we make a $16,000 investment that doesn't meet the new directives the state comes out with. So I express caution with the MMS. Filters, I think, are an absolute necessity. I assume that's part of the IT management function. The one-call system, I assume, is a new subscription to what we've been using. It's not expanding it at all, so that's worked well. I'm totally opposed to transportation management software. We've had we have a new bus contract, I believe we're close to announcing. The request for bids were put together with the use of some consultants. I'm not sure how much. They may have had some software to assist us in preparing that bid. I believe there'll be consultants that can help us with busing needs in the future. It's a very large expense. ESPED, I assume, is a special education. Is it a mandatory reporting system?
In a sense, yes.
Okay. I don't have any questions because I don't know enough about that. If it makes sense, it makes sense. So those are my comments on the software. So basically, I'm questioning the HR, the MMS, and the transportation is 3 expenditures.
Okay, let me just address the HR. When Dr. Cawley came in, the exiting superintendent wanted to replace our HR software package, which essentially tracks teachers' time off. It's a very kind of bloated, huge package that if we were doing everything through it, including payroll and everything, would have made sense to replace. But I believe it had something like a $10,000 price tag, and I had asked him at that time not to replace it. At this point, now we're 3 years away. It did legitimately need to be replaced, but it didn't play with any of our other systems, so it stood on its own. This package what it does is it tracks time off. Right now, literally, when July 1st comes around, all of teachers' time off has to be hand-entered into the current system. This allows teachers to log in and call in sick. It automatically calls subs. Teachers can upload lesson plans. It keeps track of their time. It lets them know when their teaching certifications are expiring. So it tracks a whole bunch of pieces. Where if we go with this, they're also working with a professional development company. As you know, we're required to do professional development for teachers. And right now, we're tracking that on Excel spreadsheets, which is very cumbersome to track over time.
Well, right now, we have it on paper.
And on paper. 100 years ago, I think the state had given a program out that the Windows 3.1 computer that it was running on no longer works. I mean, it's kind of like Mike's 1977 truck. That's kind of like where it's at, but I didn't want to purchase something that, again, was going to be a standalone system. So this will tie in with the new evaluations that need to be done. So that will be
Payroll.
in payroll. Time off requests will we're going to get rid of that whole paper system. And although this is kind of a big price tag on the first rollout year, this is actually 2 years, so we wouldn't have any cost next year, the following year as well. About 5,000 of that is training and conversion and that data conversion and all of that. After that, it's just a pure per employee rate. And it also will, they're guaranteeing me that it will tie in with a payroll system as far as that won't have to be hand-entered anymore. Right now, every day off has to be hand-entered into the payroll system and checked by hand to make sure that people aren't going over their allotted time and all of that stuff. And the professional development will also tie in with the state reporting. So it's a good time to make this move.
Yeah, Eric was first, and then you might.
I don't remember on our last budget that we just approved. Do we still have sub-callers as a line item?
This would be replacing.
So we're going to replace, we're not going to have sub-callers anymore. I think that was about, what, $11,000? What was
It
it?
wasn't even that much.
Wasn't that much? It was probably, might have been 7,000,
It
I
ends
think,
up
for
that
some.
the yearly cost becomes a wash.
Actually.
So we're going to not have that, we're going to actually have some savings of
Right.
maybe $7,000 for a
Exactly right.
sub-caller.
Exactly right.
That can now be, so we're only actually expending maybe,
Right.
what, 4,000 on top of that?
Right, and
forget
this
where
is
I'm
a
at here.
two-year contract.
Basically, what we're
so-
paying for now, above and beyond what the sub-colors would be mostly the training and the conversion from the hand or the spreadsheets, putting that information into the system.
Okay.
Mike?
Well, again, as you were discussing some of the tasks, it makes sense. However, I didn't see a reduction in administrative costs where sub-callers would have been reduced if we do this. So I don't see that being an absolute relationship. Secondly, you brought up about the state requirements, and that's where I'm concerned, similar to the bullying, is the new tests, the new assessments for teachers, which is going to be brought up more so in the next few years from the state. There may be new requirements for HR software as a result of that. I'm hesitant to make an investment now with that going on.
My experience has been that once you, because it's software for a service, as I think we touched on last week, once you enter into a contract, it's the software company's obligation to keep up with those
Compliant.
changes. And that has been exactly how it's worked with MMS. It's just that we don't happen to have the discipline mod. We could do the bullying thing as of, I think it was in January that they put
They opened it up.
the first upgrade, and then when some other changes came into being, I think the last upgrade was last month, but they keep up with that. So even with the SIF project that we're involved in, they're making the program changes as the rules change. So, it behooves us to work with them on that, because then we kind of keep control of where our information is being stored. And with the expansion of the state reporting, the more that we can tie our systems together, the better off we are. I mean, we have to report on 504s, which part of that SPED program will put all 504s all in the same place. Right now, they're not. They're everywhere.
Are there any other questions on the software? Any of the software?
Michelle,
Tony?
back to the transportation. We buy the software and it tells us we could do with one less route. There's no guarantee that the transportation company is obligated to.
Yes, they are. And that is going to be the caveat. If we don't have the software, we have no way to force them into doing it.
And school systems that have bought these programs, do they actually see a savings in their actual transportation dollars?
We called, was
Yep.
it Sharon?
Sharon.
Stoughton.
There's a couple more.
I know she did some other ones.
Those
Yeah,
are
they're all the
the-
same bus company. Sharon and Stoughton share the same bus company that does their routes.
Yeah, but they
Sharon,
have-
Stoughton,
They
Canton.
do their own routes in-house.
Yeah, they do their
Right.
own,
Yep.
but they use the same bus company for all three, Sharon, Canton,
Large
Stoughton.
schools,
Yeah.
larger populations.
So
Any
the
other-
way it was built into the bid was basically, if we can show through our software or through our analysis that we can do this extra bus or one bus less, we will tell you, bus company, that we will have 16 buses. And then if there's any adjustments to the other routes in terms of mileage, we will basically adjust for that. 'Cause
So one of the things
we're going to
that-
have to know all those things. We reduce one bus, does it have any effect on all the other routes? How much is that effect, so we can quantify it, so we can adjust the contract?
And one route is approximately how much? One bus?
It depends, it will depend on what happens to the other routes, but it could be anywhere between 45 on up.
And one of the
Could be a
things
lot
that
of
you
money.
can play around with, the things that this committee has talked about, okay, so we want to do door-to-door pickup for all our kindergarten and first
Yeah,
grade
that's what that
students.
means.
But then we
Sure,
want
Mike,
these
but
big,
you would just-
we want big bus stops for everybody else, and we want to place them out within a 2-mile route distance from one another. Okay, so if we do that, how long does that bus route happen to be? So then if somebody decides, well, what happens if we pick up all elementary school kids door to door? You just say, mark all of the kids K to 4 as door-to-door pickup. It then adjusts the time of those routes, so you can actually see what would make a difference and what wouldn't. Other than that, you're at somebody else's mercy of telling you what you
Mike?
can do and not do.
Well, again, have looked at various transportation software packages as this discussion has gone on. I don't see substantial savings. The contract asks for us to be able to show an analysis. It doesn't, I haven't seen the actual wording, but I believe an analysis can be done with a variety of tools, whether it be a consultant or pen and paper. It's an analysis of your routes. It's showing an analysis. I think the transportation management, we did have a discussion about having a transportation subcommittee before we put the bus contract together, although we had a workshop hearing on the bids. Software doesn't always fix everything, and that's with all due respect to
Oh, you're not-
IT
Can I
technology
make one comment to
people.
that, though? There is no company and no consultant that's going to give us a better bang for the buck on this, because the part that you're missing is we're going to put in the time, effort, and energy to finding out where the kids are, mapping them, and then figuring out what the routes are. That is